When faking space goes wrong, as far as I'm aware, I'm the only person on the internet that's highlighted this clip we're going to entertain and the problems associated with it. Now, I first showed you this clip a week, possibly 2 weeks ago, but we didn't draw too many conclusions at the end of it. The video was ridiculously damning as it was, but now we're going to revisit it and we're going to entertain the conclusions we're left with. And like I said, incredibly damning. Great for people who are set on the fence here. Remember, for all you fence sitters, my stance regarding this subject of space and the Earth is I simply stand by what's physically true. That way, I eliminate propaganda, shady characters, conceptual ideas. I simply stand by the physical truth of this Earth. That gives me a foundation to see very clearly, okay? The results of what is physically true, go test it for yourself. They highlight to us all. Unfortunately, what we've been told, that the globe is our reality, is exactly the opposite. The globe is physically impossible. And then, of course, when we entertain space, it only gets worse. So let's have a look. The mission, STS-51, the narrator, Frederick Gregory, who at the time supposedly was a rookie pilot on the space shuttle. Frederick went on to become a NASA administrator. Frederick's narration is great and makes for a wonderful story until you actually cross-reference what Frederick's saying. And when you cross-reference it, it really is incredibly damning, and the conclusions we're left with, aren't great. So let's have a look. We're going to play the full clip. It's what? Just over 3 minutes. And then we're going to dissect it up, and we're going to delve into the conclusions we're left with, which we didn't do previously. And if you're a space fan or you're someone on the fence, it's time to wake up and smell the coffee.
Our crew patch was designed by the daughter of one of our crew members, Carol Lynn, Don Lynn's daughter. Did an excellent job. We were very pleased with it. While Challenger waited out on the pad for us, we were having breakfast. This is the morning breakfast. You notice we carried the motif of the gold and silver team across. The biggest trick about this was eating breakfast with those shirts on and then packing them up and get them on board the shuttle so we could have them on board for our crew picture. Exiting the quarters, we all marched off to the van, gave our usual happy wave, and we're ready to go out to the bird.
Since I was a rookie on board, I was asked to describe the sensation of this liftoff. We had an awful lot of training, a couple of years worth, but nothing fully prepared me for the actual sensation of those main engines starting and then eventually those solids sliding. And I'll tell you, this son of a gun really rattles when it takes off. I kept looking out the window and Bob would say, "Go back to your instruments." So the pilot's job is not to observe, but to monitor and make sure that everything works properly. After we took off, of course, we had a big roll, and something very unique in this picture, in this series of shots, we're going right up the eastern coast of the United States. We'll flash back and forth between this outside of the window shot and the orbiter actually from the ground, but I think it was spectacular. We can see the horizon come up. We're right up the eastern coast. I commented to Bob that we have just gone through some clouds. Those clouds we just went through were at 42,000 feet, so you can tell we were really traveling upward. We had a normal throttle back at about 0.8 Mach to maintain our dynamic pressure below our set limit of about 460 feet per second squared, and then we throttled back up to 104%. Now, we continue up the eastern shore. That camera, by the way, was mounted at my right shoulder, looking out the window to my right. That was the Chesapeake Bay. You can see the Chesapeake Bay, Potomac River there, into the Washington area. Delaware Bay, the Sea Isle coming up on Atlantic City to the right of the screen. next thing you'll see is Long Island. Certainly doesn't take long to get up there at all. There's Long Island coming up on the right side. You can see Manhattan there. We'll go right on out the tip of Long Island. See the northern and southern shores out there, the Hamptons. And the next thing you see is Cape Cod. And all of this is real time. This is how fast we were going. Actually, pretty slow compared to our actual flight when we got up to 190 miles. There's Cape Cod there in Boston.
So what I did was identify two very distinguishable landmarks that we saw in the footage. I then measured the distance between those two landmarks. In this instance was Delaware Bay on the left and to the beaches of Cape Cod. I measured the distance and then I measured the time travelled between those 2 points of reference to get some estimation of speed. And what I got was ridiculous. The speeds in the footage Frederick was narrating were 35,000 miles an hour. Essentially 18,000 miles an hour, the footage of the space shuttle that Frederick had told us was real time. But that footage, when we cross-referenced it by measuring 2 points of reference in the footage, getting an estimate of the speed we got was 35,000 miles an hour, which is 18,000 miles an hour faster than the space shuttle can go. Just showing how I measured it, I put a visual indicator on the screen, starting at the left of Delaware Bay and then finishing at the beaches of Cape Cod, just showing you how I measured it.
Coming up on Atlantic City to the right of the screen. The next thing you'll see is Long Island. Certainly doesn't take long to get up there at all. There's Long Island coming up on the right side. You can see Manhattan there. We'll go right on out the tip of Long Island. See the northern and southern shores out there, the Hamptons. And the next thing you see is Cape Cod. And all of this is real time. This is how fast we were going. Actually, pretty slow compared to our actual flight when we got up to 190 miles. There's Cape Cod there in Boston.
So that made for a great narration from Frederick. Like I said, that is until you cross-reference it. And then when you cross-reference it using the two landmarks, the visible landmarks that I was able to identify, and then you put that information in the speed calculator, Frederick's narration is 18,000 miles an hour out. So the conclusions we're left with regarding this footage, the space shuttle footage, from Frederick, who was a rookie NASA space shuttle pilot at the time, who went on to become a NASA administrator. Considering this footage is going 18,000 miles an hour faster than the space shuttle can go, Frederick's telling us it's real time. And of course, he's not realizing that this footage is too fast. That tells us two things. One, Frederick is obviously never sat on the space shuttle. I personally don't think anyone ever has, myself, okay? Do they get on the Blue Origin fairground ride? Quite possibly. But I don't think anyone's ever got on the space shuttle. And Frederick's one of the reasons why. He doesn't have a Scooby-Doo regarding the speeds that relate to the space shuttle. Like I said, we've got a discrepancy of 18,000 miles an hour. If you'd flown on that space shuttle, I think you might have picked that up. And of course, from a build quality standpoint, I think 18,000 miles an hour faster than the space shuttle is capable of doing. I think that might have been an issue as well, guys. So conclusion number one, it's obvious Frederick wasn't sat on the space shuttle. Conclusion number two, it's obvious they have to speed the footage up. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had this discrepancy. They have to speed the footage up. And of course, in this instance, they got it wrong. They sped it up too fast. But I feel the reason they have to speed the footage up, obviously, anyone who's watched the space rockets launch, is because these rockets, particularly the space shuttle, doesn't go fast enough to get into orbit, to fit the story and the narrative which we've all been told. And of course, the fact they've had to speed this footage up highlights that. And of course, if these rockets aren't going as fast as they claim, then they can't get to orbit anyway based on the stories we've been told regarding space and the Earth. And then when you look at Frederick's narration, it would seem no one sat on them rockets either. So it would seem these rocket launches are just firework displays for the naive and the gullible. Incredibly damning footage. Like I said, I don't think I've seen anyone on the internet highlight that footage. And of course, the conclusions we're left with, having entertained it, yeah, I don't think, if you're on the fence, you're going to have to address these things. I know it might be uncomfortable, but the psychology that's involved in this subject is the main barrier. I know it's difficult because it's uncomfortable territory to go against things that we've all been told to be true. But when you address it with an honest heart and no bias, it becomes quite obvious things are up. And of course, when you test the validity of the globe Earth theory, which we've all been taught at school, it quickly falls apart based on the physicality of the Earth. And of course, that alone highlights the space story of sphere rocks, air pressure system rocks residing in the middle of a vacuum with space stations in free fall around them. But of course, when we entertain the space story, it's not done well enough to fool people with a little bit of common sense and discernment. You just got to cross-reference this stuff and look at the narration, and it all falls apart. Don't let emotions hold you back from what's physically true, and don't let a bias get in the way of you seeing the simple truth. Have a good one, everyone.